And welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, on this Sunday afternoon to the 49th World Championship Spanish Grand Prix. We're here at Barcelona for round 5 of 21 in this 2019 season. Barcelona, it's a great destination to come to, and if you're on pole position, it's often a great race as well. What a magnificent cathedral in the heart of Barcelona, designed by Gaudi 137 years ago, and they might just complete it in a few years' time as well. There's so many beaches to come and enjoy here as well, and it's home to FC Barcelona, one of the most successful football clubs in the history of the sport, but not in the Champions League this year. 2.8 miles this circuit, the Catalunya. There are 16 corners, 7 to the left and 9 to the right. There's a 565-meter run down towards turn 1. It's one of the longest runs at the start of a race that we have on the calendar, and there are always chances to overtake if you're brave enough and if you're late enough on the brakes. Just ask Nigel Mansell. Let's go back to 1991. We could watch this time and time again, as I'm sure Nigel Mansell does. Romain Grosjean won't want to see this again too many times. Last year's start, spinning across the racetrack, taking out Nico Hülkenberg and Pierre Gasly that afternoon in the Toro Rosso. And down towards turn 10 now, Valtteri Bottas locking up in 2017 and giving Sebastian Vettel all the encouragement he needed to mount another challenge. Mercedes against Ferrari, will we see that battle once again in this afternoon's race? We have soft, medium and hard compound tyres. It is the 3 hardest compounds that Pirelli have in their range, and the medium tyre, which could be the best race tyre, about 8/10 slower per lap, but it might just last a little bit longer in what could be a one-stop race if the teams can make the tyres last. Here's the grid then. Valtteri Bottas for the 3rd race in a row is on pole. Lewis Hamilton for the 7th consecutive Spanish Grand Prix is on the front row. Sebastian Vettel starts 3rd ahead of Max Verstappen, who won here from 4th in 2016. Charles Leclerc for the 3rd time in 4 races starts 5th. Pierre Gasly 6th. Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen 7th and 8th. Danny Kvyat for Toro Rosso starts 9th. Lando Norris into the top 10 for the 4th time this year is 10th. Alex Albon for Toro Rosso 11th ahead of Carlos Sainz in his home Grand Prix, who starts 12th. Daniel Ricciardo, demoted because of a 3-place grid penalty, to 13th. Starts alongside Kimi Räikkönen, worst start here in 10 years. It's an all-racing point row as Sergio Perez just ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll. Robert Kubica moves up to 17th because Antonio Giovinazzi takes a gearbox penalty. Behind him, so does George Russell, and Nico Hülkenberg starts in the pit lane, hoping to carry on the recent run, where in the last 2 races, those that have started in the pit lane have come home to finish in the points. And today's race, Martin Brundle, could be a little bit like the final day of the Premier League season. If the team in red are to emerge with the silverware, they're hoping that others ahead of them are going to have to slip up.
And, well, Crofty, I have to say, like with that football match you're referring to, I don't really mind who wins as long as they give us a lot of entertainment en route to a last-minute thriller, and hopefully not decided on penalties.
It has been Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas leading the way so far this season. Mercedes finishing 1 and 2 in every race so far. 4 consecutive 1-2 finishes. Valtteri Bottas, 3 consecutive pole positions as well, and leading the championship by just the 1 point, courtesy, of course, of that fastest lap that he scored in Australia. A new, reborn Valtteri Bottas, who will be giving nothing going into turn 1, and Lewis Hamilton behind him, who says he's going to give nothing going into turn 1 ever again after Baku 2 weeks ago.
I know, and that bodes for some pretty close action between the 2 Mercedes drivers. Lewis Kahn led. Valtteri Bottas begin to believe he can win the races, win the World Championship. He'll want to be snuffing that concept out in the first few corners of this Grand Prix. And equally, we've seen Valtteri Bottas this year with that rather more steely approach to his motor racing. And of course, as we know, and it's happened here a lot, second row of the grid get a wonderful tow, a wonderful slipstream down to the first corner as the front 2 are fighting each other. It's all about the start, and then it'll settle down a little bit. Yes, they've all got new upgrades. How will they go on a track temperature of 41 degrees on the longer runs? So there's a lot to be found out here this afternoon.
So off we go then for the formation lap. The cars will go around the 2.8 miles, and those either side of the grid, and the mechanics and the technicians that have been working on their cars before the start here have to pelt at full speed back to the respective garages. Soft compound tyres for everybody on the grid to start this race, except Kimi Räikkönen in 14th, Lance Stroll in 16th, Robert Kubica in 17th, George Russell in 19th, and Nico Hülkenberg in the pit lane. Soft tyres then, so everyone will be hoping, Martin, to push those tyres as fast as they can. But if you're a Charles Leclerc, if you're a Max Verstappen, will you be looking maybe to trigger a few early pit stops here, try and put the top three off their game a little bit?
I think that's the job that Red Bull can try. We asked Binotto that, didn't we, from Ferrari? Would you split strategy? It looks like you can't outrace Mercedes on pure pace at Ferrari. Might you split the strategies? And he said, and he kind of would, wouldn't he? No, we've got to give each driver the optimum race strategy. We can't afford to sacrifice one of them, basically, but we'll see how that works out. But if Mercedes get clear at the front, then they'll have to start coming up with some more ideas.
On board then with Lewis Hamilton, trailing his teammate by 1 point in the championship. The last time he came into this race, trailing his teammate, was 2016, and we all know what happened at turn 3. A crash with Nico Rosberg. Hamilton says we race under rules and regulations. The team, Mercedes-Benz, lay down what they expect from their drivers. But I wonder, will we have two Mercedes side by side, close together once again, going through turn 3? Is there the potential for another coming together for the Silver Arrows?
I think there is, actually, because, you know, Bottas says, I will not yield, and Hamilton says, I will not be so kind again. And Vettel will be sitting there, very much hoping for that to happen in his Ferrari.
What Valtteri Bottas needs to do now is go nice and slowly to make his way towards pole position, because I fear he's going to be sat there for quite some time as the drivers behind him make their way onto the grid as well. Valtteri Bottas with 9 career poles now, 3 poles in a row.
Lewis has just gone slightly past his yellow line. That's fine, as long as there's no relative movement before the red lights go out. It's given him a few centimetres advantage over Valtteri Bottas on the start, and that extended yellow line out to the right-hand side so the drivers can actually see it from the cockpit. They're so low in there. 6 times in the last 16 years here, there has been a lap 1 safety car as well. We've seen it in some of the support races this weekend as well. 19 cars lined up on the grid, 1 in the pit lane. That's Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault. Green flag is being waved, so we're all set for the Spanish Grand Prix. And it's lights out, away we go, and Hamilton gets a very good start. He's wheel-to-wheel with Bottas already. Behind them, Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, and it's Hamilton and Bottas wheel-to-wheel. And now Vettel's joining in on the action as well. Into turn 1 we go. Vettel locks up, goes wide, Hamilton into the lead. Bottas gets through in second. Vettel is compromised by Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen ahead of Leclerc, and now Pierre Gasly going wide through turn 3. But out in front, Valtteri Bottas not getting the best start. Hamilton leading as down the inside goes Kevin Magnussen on Daniel Kvyat. Yes, he logged his front brakes, didn't he, Vettel? He had such a good run through there. The two Ferraris nearly connected for good measure. Vettel didn't run too wide, so he was able to rejoin the track without going through the penalty zone there, and he got away with that, and somehow there was no contact.
Carlos Sainz is putting pressure on Alex Albon a little further down in the field, in 10th place at the moment, ahead of the Toro Rosso. Behind them comes Daniel Ricciardo. Hamilton is way out in the lead, ahead of Bottas and Verstappen. Leclerc has a look at Vettel, can't get past. Then there's Gasly and Grosjean and Magnussen and Kvyat and Albon and Sainz, and behind them Ricciardo.
Vettel already complaining about a flat spot on the tyre. We saw it locked up.
Quite a bit of a flat spot front right.
That is not going to be very nice going down the straight. It'd be like riding along with a 50-pence piece as a tyre.
And that's what happens when you push a tyre at 190 miles an hour. Stationary, you're doing 190, your tyre's stationary, and you're pushing it along the racetrack.
Lando Norris has had a horrible start. He's down to 17th already. Lewis Hamilton has a 2-second advantage over his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen is running in 3rd place, ahead of Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc.
And with both Ferraris tripping over each other, with Vettel running wide, of course, that's let Verstappen nicely up into third.
He said, we are racing Ferrari this afternoon. The Mercedes might be a bit too quick, but Verstappen already getting past the Scuderia, and he's not too far behind Valtteri Bottas. He's had an excellent start, it has to be said. Perez and Stroll gaining places for Racing Point as well, up to 13th and 14th. Giovinazzi in 15th as well. Kimi Raikkonen went off at turn 4. He's running last at the moment with Nico Hülkenberg from the pit lane already up into 17th place.
Vettel had to go for it, but it's an error at the end of the day. Flat spotting the tyre like that, didn't get around the outside, but he had to give it a try, didn't he? That was his best shot of the afternoon.
It certainly was. He joined the action, but he just was in the wrong place at the wrong time as far as he was concerned. Lando Norris going wide through turn 3. That's what's dropped him down the order, but he's already gaining on Antonio Giovinazzi, as you might have seen just a few seconds ago. And we come towards the end of lap 2. And for Lewis Hamilton, this is not looking too bad, is it? Sets the new fastest lap, unsurprisingly, is 1.9 seconds clear of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen, with DRS now enabled, is within DRS range if he can keep that pace up behind Valtteri Bottas. Vettel and Leclerc and Gasly come through next. Grosjean, Magnussen, Kvyat and Albon completing the top 10. Then Carlos Sainz in his home race and a 100% point-scoring record to try and maintain, running in 11th at the moment.
2 laps have been completed. The drag reduction system, the DRS, is now available if you're within a second of the car in front, and you're able at the 2 detection points around the racetrack. We'll point them out to you.
So Hamilton leads, and the only other time he's led the first lap this year was when he led start to finish in China. Hoping he can carry on that record. It shows you, Martin, when you get clear track in front of you, just what the advantage is here in Barcelona.
And we know that he's not 6/10 slower than Bottas around here. He came into the pits early yesterday with a yellow flag, hadn't charged his battery up properly because of the pitting early and the circumstances out on the racetrack. Then had to go out and push hard to charge that battery. He had to go out early, and so I wouldn't take anything away from Bottas at all. Stunning lap, but we do know that Hamilton is not 6/10 slower.
We will see the start again in a moment, I'm sure. But for the second race running, Hamilton's reactions were more impressive than Valtteri Bottas. He clearly got away very, very smartly and was very soon wheel to wheel.
And Lewis has been on that, hasn't he? He's been on to his start because it's so close. He's got a teammate that can match him now again, and he's every little moment like that is counting big time.
Let's see that race start then. We're on lap 4 of the Grand Prix, and when the lights went out, Hamilton, look how good that start was.
So there's 4 meters between the grid slots, but we know Hamilton was slightly ahead of his yellow line. Bottas wasn't, but the primary phase of the start before they fully released the clutches. And look, Vettel, if he saw that again, Vettel will wish he'd have gone down the inside. And there's the big lockup. No wonder he's got a flat spot. And it looked like he got away with second. Now look how close the 2 Ferraris get on the outside of turn 2. So that really couldn't have been any worse. Well, it could have been worse. They could have been facing the wrong way.
On board with Verstappen, Vettel, you're right, Martin, should have gone to the inside. He was following the wrong Mercedes in terms of pace because he had to get out from behind the rear wing of Bottas. Otherwise, he might have gone straight into it.
Yeah, I mean, going around the outside, and Bottas got quite a snake on there, didn't he? But, but yeah, going around the outside of 2 cars down into turn 1, the chances of getting skittled off the track are very high indeed.
Talking of getting skittled off the track, where's Kimi Raikkonen going? That is not where you need to be on the opening lap, and that's why he's now down in 19th place. He's managed to get past George Russell. He was running 20th at one stage, and on board with Valtteri Bottas here. This is Larry.
And then Bottas, it wouldn't have been too difficult to swap ends there for Bottas. Yeah, Valtteri keeping his head, it must be said, and that was every time we see that from a different angle, it looks closer than ever, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Hamilton leads then from Bottas and Verstappen. Bottas's pace taking him out of a DRS threat from Max Verstappen for the time being. Karun Chandok, down to you.
Yeah, just quick line on Kimi Raikkonen. We saw him go off there turn 4. The team have come back to him to say that they've looked at the data, there isn't any damage they could see on the floor, and he should be able to continue okay.
Thank you very much. Good to hear. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, went from the pit lane in Baku 2 weeks ago to finish in the points. He's got it all to do here in Barcelona this afternoon. Lando Norris is still on the tail of Antonio Giovinazzi down in 16th place. Nico Hülkenberg about a second and a half behind him. Daniel Ricciardo putting as much pressure as he can on Carlos Sainz as the drivers now, Martin, they know this track so well, but they know they need to be patient here. Wait for the openings to emerge.
They're not dropping Verstappen by much, are they? They're dropping the Ferraris, look. Mid to late 1 minute 22s, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Early 1 minute 23s for the two Ferraris. It's disappointing for them.
I just wonder if they're not dropping Max Verstappen very quickly, and we're running on board with Daniel Ricciardo at the moment. Does this suggest, Martin, a bit of tyre management, a bit of pace management from the Mercedes here, trying to make a one-stop happen?
Could be the two Ferraris have just pumped in fastest first sectors, like they're getting on with it. A vibration going on that front wing of Daniel Ricciardo there.
So I don't know if he's locked up or he's got a slight flat spot himself as well. Paul di Resta, let's head down to you.
Yeah, Croft, they've discovered a whole new world here. Listen to Verstappen getting coached by his engineer. Now that they're comfortable, they feel they've got the pace. They've told them, make sure you maintain a good gap through 3 and 9 and 12 just to conserve.
They're close this time, half a second. Yeah, I have no pace, I don't know why.
I have no pace.
Essentially, they want the car in nice, clean air through those tyres when they're putting the most stress through it, and to think about the strategy.
Strategy all important. Ferrari have 2 new sets of soft tyres remaining to use in this race. They've got medium new tyres as well as Hamilton sets a new fastest lap. Do they want to up the pace, Martin? Because they can go for a 2-stop strategy because they've got fresher tyres to play around with.
I think they've got all the options covered, haven't they? Especially with the track position they now have. What's fascinating for me is Verstappen versus the 2 Ferraris. They're not dropping Gasly by too much either. Solid drive from Pierre Gasly in Baku 2 weeks ago. And we know that Ricciardo's in the DRS zone. It's registered just out of the final chicane as you come onto the pit straight. And it can be worth up to 30 kilometers per hour. It's very, very powerful this year.
Giovinazzi coming into the pits already, a very early stop to put the hard compound tyre on, and a strategy not many are expecting here in terms of running the hard compound tyre. Do they think they could possibly get to the end or near to the end on that time? Might it gain them some track position a little later on?
Yeah, they're playing for a point or two, aren't they, in the back end of the top 10. Maybe they'll go to the end, but I've got to say, your heart sinks a little bit as the driver. You're in on lap 7. You've got the slowest tyres on there, well over a second a lap slow, and you've got to eke them out to the end of the Grand Prix. It didn't feel very racy until the pit stops start happening, and all of a sudden you'll find you're moving up the order a bit.
Yeah, and until you start doing that, you're in a bit of a world of pain, it has to be said. Charles Leclerc is right onto the back now of Sebastian Vettel, and he's got DRS as well, as you can see down that main straight. Is he a little too far back to make the move? He's certainly close enough to make sure that Sebastian Vettel can see him in his wing mirrors. And what do Ferrari do about this now? Because for once again this season, we've got a race where one Ferrari is holding up the other.
Yeah, it is Bahrain all over again, isn't it? And I fully expect Charlie Leclerc on the blower saying, he's holding me up, I can go faster. And once again, they're looking at 2 disappearing Mercedes and a disappearing Red Bull.
And don't forget, flat spot on Sebastian Vettel's tyres as well. That's not helping his pace. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, I think Ferrari have given Vettel a hurry up. He's obviously, as you rightly said, Crofty, he's obviously going to be compromised by that flat spot. And now Verstappen has edged away. It's nearly 3 seconds, the gap between Vettel and Verstappen. Whereas Leclerc in the DRS. What do they do? We saw it. We've seen this toing and froing on team orders happen on so many occasions so far this season. I think they've got to make a decision fairly soon. Maybe they use the split strategy option that Martin asked Binotto about.
But of course, what we saw in China when it looked a no-brainer, one was holding the other up, it was actually only the DRS that was keeping them in contact with each other. Absolutely. The drag reduction system. When they did the swap, nothing happened really much, did it? They made Leclerc move out of the way, and Vettel had no more pace.
Today, by the way, the anniversary of the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix, which you might remember featured Ferrari team orders and cost them around about $1 million for breaching podium ceremony rules on that occasion.
A lot of booing fans on the day.
Yes, quite. don't think they're booing in the grandstands just yet, but Leclerc very much keeping in touch with Sebastian Vettel. Difficult decisions for Mattia Binotto on the Ferrari pit wall to make once again. And he's getting closer and closer and closer on this lap, and I wonder in the next DRS zone, might he have the chance to overtake here?
A heavily flat spotted tyre, especially as you start getting up to VMAX top speed, shakes the fillings out of your teeth. You can't see where you're going sometimes if it's really bad. But also, if you're going to lock up later on as the tyres start losing grip and wearing out, it always tends to stop in the same place, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's more likely to stop on the flatter bit. And then also you start sliding across the road because you've got a little bit less tyre on the track. And it's a triple-edged sword in that respect, if there is such a thing. Because, and that I think is why Vettel might be struggling.
Dangerous with a triple-edged sword, couldn't you? Dangerous for Lewis Hamilton at the moment. If you're cheering on Valtteri Bottas, 3 seconds, the advantage out in front, near enough 3 seconds, the gap back to Verstappen. Charles Leclerc's having a look on Sebastian Vettel here, but he's not quite close enough once again, and that time around, certainly Vettel was mounting a challenge to Sebastian Vettel, and his pace does seem to be more and more being affected by the Ferrari, his teammate out in front.
They're 9 seconds off the lead now. This is nonsense, fighting each other. Let him through, see how we can get on. If not, switch them around again. There's no point in losing time, one defending against the other attacking. Makes no sense.
I couldn't agree more, Martin, but if you're Sebastian Vettel and you've just put that message to him, what are you going to say? No, he's not coming past me, I'm out in front. Stop it, please.
Well, of course he's going to say that, but yeah, and it's early in the race,
Yeah.
whatever, but we know he's carrying an issue with that flat-spotted tyre. The amount of suspension movement as they get weight transfer going forward and they hit the brakes, getting about 5G deceleration. But they cannot afford to lose a 1/10 of a second squabbling.
Well, maybe they've wasted a few too many seconds, not squabbling, but waiting to make a decision. We haven't heard the Ferrari team radio. They might have given Sebastian Vettel 3 laps to up his pace. And if he doesn't, then Charles Leclerc gets let past. That has been one of the calls we've seen in the past. We're back on board with Leclerc once again, and we can see Sebastian Vettel getting closer to him, but we're just a bit too far back. They are going to need Vettel to make way to let Leclerc past, and that doesn't seem to be happening at the moment.
The flashing red light, of course, especially if you're new to F1, is as they're harvesting energy, charging up their batteries. The battery pack is worth around 160 horsepower in the car, so they've got to off throttle, of course, and in certain parts of the track where it's not power critical, they want to charge their batteries up.
Max Verstappen started 4th, up into 3rd at the moment, hasn't finished lower than he started in the last 13 races ever since his DNF in Hungary last season. And he's finished 4th or better in the last 9 races as well. Christian Horner saying he's driving absolutely exemplary at the moment. And he's in the podium spots for Red Bull. We've got 2 Mercedes, and we've got 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, 2 Hasses, and 2 Toro Rossos in the top 10. Paul, to you at race control.
Yeah, Ferrari have just given a swap, so they're going to let Leclerc go in front of Vettel.
Well, I think it's been coming for a while, and maybe should have come about 4 laps ago, to be honest. But we don't know what Charles Leclerc's pace is going to be once he's let past. And Sebastian Vettel, just looking in his left wing mirror there to see where his teammate is, now moves over towards the inside of the track, lets Charles Leclerc through on the racing line, and the 2 Ferraris do swap places. Leclerc is up in the 4th place. He's got his wish. Jock Clear, who's been part of the mentoring process for Leclerc down at Ferrari, I'm sure would have been involved in that decision-making. Now the pressure is on the young man to show that he's got more pace and to start charging after Max Verstappen.
I don't know what the Italian is for no-brainer, but that was a no-brainer.
Paul di Resta.
Back and Sebastian straight on the team radio saying, let's get off these tyres, put me in traffic, do what you want. It's better than being on this set of tyres, so he's obviously struggling and feels because he's let his teammate through to do something very different.
If their stop was rapidly fast, there's half a chance they could get him in and out ahead of Carlos Sainz in the McLaren if they stopped him at the end of this lap. But you'd be taking a bit of a risk, and I would imagine they'd want him to go a couple more laps so that he could definitely clear Sainz and Ricciardo as well.
Yeah, look at the gap that Leclerc's already put on him, just to confirm what we were thinking. And it will have hurt Leclerc's tyres a little bit as well, having to follow his teammate. But anyway, the decision's been made, and now he can go racing. And he's straight down into the low 1 minute 22s. Obviously Vettel at 24, but he moved out of the way on that lap. So Leclerc brings himself into race leading pace, but he's 11.6 seconds off the lead.
The thing is, Ferrari have the tyres available to make a two-stop strategy work here, but the pace wasn't good enough when Leclerc was behind Vettel. That could now change. I mentioned it's 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 in the top 10, 5 constructors in the top 10, and Toro Rosso in the points with Fiat and Albon. Franz Tost is with us on the Toro Rosso pit wall. It's been a very good opening part of the race for your team here, Franz.
Yes, it was a very good start from both drivers, very good first lap. And I hope that we can continue like this and maybe to get even better positions.
Yeah, settling down into it now. Alex Albon had quite a good scrap on the early lap with Carlos Sainz. Did he drop a place and then get past him again?
Yes, after the start, the McLaren was in front of him, but then in corner 4, 5, he could defend, and corner 7, he was gone ahead. It was a very good action from him.
Anything the drivers are reporting back about track conditions?
The drivers are reporting a lot back, but this is not for public, because as you know, it depends on the tire degradation or what the tires are doing, because we have hotter temperatures, and it's in connection with the strategy. Therefore, I can't talk about this.
Well, when it all pans out, come back and tell us more. Thanks ever so much indeed for the moment. Franz Tost with us live on the pit wall as we watch Daniel Ricciardo once again trying to get past Carlos Sainz. He's down in 12th place at the moment. He seems an awful lot closer to Carlos Sainz, who's moved over to the inside to cover off Ricciardo. He knew where that move was coming from.
Daniel doesn't seem as confident on the brakes of a Renault yet, does he, as he did in a Red Bull, but he's certainly shaping up to have a run at the McLaren. They're still outside of the World Championship points, these two.
Incredible, isn't it? I think Ricciardo needs to change that crash helmet, Martin. The only crash helmet he's used so far this season to score any points is the Jack Brabham tribute helmet. This rather colourful version has not scored in points yet. Change your helmet, change your luck. Let's see what happens in Monaco. See what happens for the end of this race as well. We're on lap 14 and Lewis Hamilton has a 3.5 second lead over Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen in the podium places at the moment, then Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel completing the top 5. We can head down to Karun.
Yeah, guys, just trying to look ahead a little bit to where the first pit stops could come. Now, Hamilton and Bottas, if they pitted now, would come out in front of the Haas cars. So there's a window that's there between Gasly in 6th and Grosjean in 7th. If they wanted to do an early stop, I mean, they are driving away, aren't they? Verstappen last time round another 6/10 slower than the Mercedes in front of him, of Bottas. Just look a bit further down, the Haas cars, Crofty, we've talked about their tyre issues so much this weekend, haven't we, in every conversation. They're doing okay. The last time round, a 10th quicker than the Toro Rossos behind them. Yes, they're 4/10 slower than Gasly, but that's not bad. They're leading that midfield pack, and they're holding their own. So unlike the troubles we've seen in previous races, this time they seem to be able to hang on to a position.
Bottas trying to come back a little bit at Hamilton, gap 3.4 seconds. Leclerc's low 1 minute 22 was a one-off lap. He's not been anywhere near it since.
Yeah. Did he push too hard when he was given the opportunity? Balancing how hard you can push and how you have to manage it, so tricky for some of these drivers.
I suspect once he got through, he thought, I'm going to full beans, I'm giving it everything to build a gap so that we don't get the reverse call. Hamilton then has responded to Bottas upping his pace in the last couple of laps.
As we watch Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, kind of a world of his own at the moment, down that main straight and into turn 1, so decelerating, going down through the gears from around about 200 miles an hour, swooping into a wonderful sequence and complex of corners. Turn 3, if you can keep your foot flat to the floor, you know you're in a very good car there. Brilliant place to watch a Formula 1 car, it really is. Verstappen carrying on his way in the Drivers' Championship this season. Max Verstappen on his way to retaking 3rd place, if he can carry on in that place, in that podium position at the moment.
Yeah, Ferrari just do not have the race pace in this phase of the Grand Prix. Now, whether It picks up a bit when they go on to presumably the mediums at the stop. But they're nowhere. He's now 14 points. So remember, when they let him through, he was 11, what did I say, 11.6 or something? He's now 14.3 seconds off the lead is Leclerc. So he's lost 3 seconds in that time.
There's 50 laps to go in this race. The medium compound tyre should do you about 30 laps if you want to eke it out. So they could stop a couple of times and stick on a medium on every occasion. And I think with the track temperature at 41 degrees at the moment, that's getting into a very good range for these medium tyres. That Sebastian Vettel's front right looks pretty angry.
Do you have a gap?
Not yet, not yet.
You should find one then. I don't care if it's traffic.
I think they've got a gap to Ricciardo. They've not got a gap to Carlos Sainz. And he's desperate for that gap. He needs to go faster. The tyres won't let him go faster. The team say, you're going to struggle if we come in now.
He's really fallen out of love with those tyres, hasn't he? But he gave him a bit of a hiding, though, didn't he? And down into turn one.
He was unfortunate at the start because Bottas got the worst start and he pulled in behind that particular Mercedes. He had to pull back out again and then lost the benefit of the slipstream, which kind of put him in the wrong place to make that overtake round the outside.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy from the aerial shot to say he should have gone down the inside, not the outside, but when we did go on board with him, it's an instinctive move you make. It's a split-second decision, and your gut instinct. You don't think, do you know what? I think I'll go left here. You know, there's no time for thought.
50-50 choice, and like me most of the time, he got it wrong on this occasion. Paul di Resta at race control. Oh, hang on 2 seconds.
Hit me when you can.
Please.
Okay, copy.
Please pit me when you can, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah, Crofty, that's what I'm listening to. He's on the radio every single lap saying, just get me a new set of tyres, constantly. In terms of Hamilton, he hasn't said a word this race so far. Bottas is just getting updates. Verstappen, he's feeling comfortable. He's happy to go with this wing balance on his next set. So all the front looking good. It's just what Vettel can do and where they can place him after that pit stop and go aggressive.
Well said.
Excuse me, Crofty. Vettel would lose 3 places if he pits now, that's all. And his pace is nowhere, is it? It's late 1 minute 23's teammate 1 minute 22.6. And for the first time, Leclerc has really started coming back again at Verstappen in 3rd place now.
You reckon if they pitted him now, he'd come out ahead of Sainz, ahead of Albon, ahead of Fiat? He could do that, adding kind of 21 seconds to where he is at the moment.
It's a bit further down than that, actually.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The trouble is, he'll have tyres to go nice and fast, but on a track where it's difficult to get past, you risk being held up and stuck in no man's land there by the cars in front of you.
Yeah, and you damage your tyres immediately.
Yeah. That's what the strategists are trying to work out, when they can get him into a gap to pit and come out and make the most of it. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at those gaps, it's not really opening up, because at that pace now, in the entire midfield pack between Grosjean in 7th and Ricciardo in 12th, those guys are all lapping within sort of 4-5 tenths of each other. So it's not opening up for Sebastian, as much as he can plead on the radio, as Paul mentioned. You know, Ferrari can't control the other driver's pace, can they? You know, so there's only so much they can do, and unfortunately, he's gonna have to just deal with it.
Yeah, but it's a bit like Baku, you know. If you're losing 1.5 seconds a lap, 12 laps later, it's a pit stop's worth of time. You might as well come in, and in a Ferrari on fresh tyres and the amount of power they've got, he'll be past them down the pit straight pretty quickly. But at the moment, he's absolutely in no man's land, is Sebastian Vettel.
And on lap 19 of this Grand Prix, Antonio Giovinazzi has already been lapped. Robert Kubica has just been lapped, and George Russell in the other Williams is about to be lapped. Such is the pace out in front that Lewis Hamilton is setting here, aiming to take a hat-trick of Spanish Grand Prix wins. Lewis Hamilton, he won from pole in 2017 and 2018. He is leading from 2nd on the grid in 2019, and running out into the sunshine, Ferrari mechanics, Karun Chandok.
Indeed, they are medium tyres coming out for the Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel has taken Martin Brundle's advice, or Ferrari have, and brought him in. Bit of a lock-up coming in. You can see him pulling the box. Looks pretty clean at the moment. Oh,
no,
slow. Yeah, it's slow to release. It was an issue just releasing. I think the wheels went on. I'm looking from the front. They went on. May have been a bit of a delay on the rear. I'm not sure where. But yeah, that's not helped him either, has it?
No, it was the rear left. Luckily, he is still going to get out ahead of Carlos Sainz, but I think that sticky rear left wheel might have cost him the opportunity to get out ahead of Albon and Kvyat, or at least Albon. And we can have a look at this pit stop again, Martin Brundle.
I think he was a little bit beyond his marks, wasn't he, as well? But left rear was, something was slow at the back there.
Were they just checking to see if the wheel nut was fully engaged? Obviously they want to release him before everything is okay. But he's lost 2 seconds in the pit stop. Sebastian Vettel's day is going from average to bad to worse. Max Verstappen pits. Lewis Hamilton has just set a 1:21.5 blistering lap out in front. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, indeed, Red Bull have to react. They don't want to get caught out on any form of undercut there from Ferrari. In and out. That's a nice clean stop there for Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc, by the way, has picked the pace up, so I expect to see him in sometime soon. He's done a 22.6 last time round, and that was a lot quicker than what we saw from, 22.8, and a lot quicker than Bottas, who was at 23.4.
Soft tyres going on for Max Verstappen in the Red Bull.
Two stopping then.
So he is going to have to stop again. You need, of the 3 compounds that Pirelli bring to each race, you need to run 2 of them during the race, either the reds, the yellow or the white, but 2 of them are going to see the racetrack. And thus far, we've not seen a yellow or a white stripe on the Red Bull. Obviously believe that the pace on a 2-stopper is going to bring them a net gain when it comes to how long it takes them to go from lights out to the checkered flag.
Bold ploughing their own furrow there, Red Bull. I believe it's what's referred to as hammer time, isn't it? With Lewis, that 1:21.5 was just miles quicker than anybody else, and he's now 6.3 seconds in the lead.
Make that 7. As Valtteri Bottas crossed the line, as Martin said that, and the timing screens updated. In the pit strategy battle, there is at the moment a 15% chance of Charles Leclerc getting past Max Verstappen when he pits, but Paul di Resta, the strategist, will have a handle on this as well. What are Ferrari going to do?
Yeah, they're all over it, Crofty. One's on plan A, one's on plan B, Vettel plan B. So that assumes to me like it's a 2-stop. Charles Leclerc very happy with his tyres and happy to continue on at that pace, and obviously looking at what Verstappen's just done, that might play into their hands.
You just wonder now he's got a bit of clean air in front of him, Charles Leclerc, whether it's worth carrying on for a little bit longer before he makes his stop. But Red Bull with Max Verstappen covering off Sebastian Vettel's early pit stop. Danny Kvyat is also into the pits, as you can see, just dropping down the order slightly for Toro Rosso. And we are on lap 22, and all 20 cars still running in the race. Russell, Giovinazzi and Kubica have all been lapped. Robert Kubica is about to be lapped by Charles Leclerc as well. So the blue flags are being waved for the Polish driver. Danny Kvyat is back out onto the track. And he comes out behind Kimi Raikkonen down in 17th place. Raikkonen going off at turn 4 on the opening lap, where Lewis Hamilton got a much better start than Valtteri Bottas. Sebastian Vettel got away quickly. 3 cars went into turn 1, all trying to come out in the lead. Vettel went round the outside, locked up his tyres. Bottas got Larry on the exit, and Hamilton on the inside said, thanks ever so much, I'll have the lead of the race.
So Ferrari then will be just rethinking this after Verstappen went out of the pits on those soft tyres, committing him to a 2-stopper as Gasly pits in the other Red Bull. Right front tyres, a bit of a passenger around here. Right front tyre of Leclerc with some pickup on it, not looking particularly happy, but it's mostly left-hander, mostly right-handers using your left-hand side tyres.
Medium tyres for Pierre Gasly. Sebastian Vettel has managed to get past Alex Albon. Danny Kvyat pitted, that helped Sebastian Vettel. His pace will be attracting a bit of attention. A 1:21.7 on the last lap as Gasly comes out ahead of Carlos Sainz, but only just ahead of Carlos Sainz, and Sainz almost shoving him round the corner in a bid to get the Red Bull to get a bit of a move on there. Sainz was approaching at a rapid rate of knots as Lance Stroll now pits for Racing Point. But Vettel's performance, Martin, on those medium compound tyres is actually looking like a decent pace.
Yeah, it is. He's happy now, isn't he? Now they're all round. But of course, another thing with that Verstappen two-stopper gives him a really good chance of the fastest lap point, doesn't it, towards the end of the Grand Prix, if he's the only one of the front runners actually two-stopping.
Fuel will have burnt down by that stage, and a fresh set of tyres and the fastest lap, and an extra point could be his. We shall see. Kevin Magnussen now has Sebastian Vettel right behind him. This is battling for position, so you won't see any blue flags being waved for Kevin Magnussen here, but such is Sebastian Vettel's better grip and better performance, you would think the Ferrari should be able to swallow up that Haas down the straight. In fact, it doesn't even need to, because Magnussen is coming in for a pit stop, and that's signs of good luck finally going Sebastian Vettel's way.
Ferrari B team coming in the pits, moving out of the way.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
But I'm sure he was doing the pits anyway. But he was a sitting duck to this man, Vettel, at the end of the straight, whatever happened.
He certainly was. Magnussen.
Yeah, indeed. Haas, I think, were planning. They were watching the gap. And I'm actually standing right behind the chief engineer, Ayu Komatsu, on the pit wall. And he was watching the gap. I saw him a lap ago make that call. And lots of high-fiving and clapping as they managed to get him out ahead of the Sauber, which they were really aiming for on that battle on track.
And the Alfa Romeo having a bit of a battle at the moment with Alex Albon, who's trying desperately to find a way past Kimi Raikkonen, and is trying round the outside at turn 4. You don't often get past there in Barcelona, but Alex Albon has managed to do it. Whoa, nice move indeed.
He's been somewhat of a quiet sensation, hasn't he, Alex Albon? Came in late, thought he was doing Formula E this year. Suddenly he's a Toro Rosso driver, and he's done a great job.
Like that. Kimi Raikkonen, sorry, I think Danny Kvyat there. Kimi Raikkonen now behind him. See, I think that was Danny Kvyat, not Alex Albon. It was. Yeah. My eyes might need testing here. Well, he came in a bit late as well. Didn't really think he'd get a chance once again. Danny Kvyat in Formula 1, but Franz Tost saying that he's been very impressed with his performance so far this season. That was nice. Apologies to Danny Kvyat. That was a super move nonetheless. This is down the main straight. Daniel Ricciardo, who has been behind Carlos Sainz for much of this race, finally gets past him, and then they have to pit as well. I can just see them emerging from the pit lane. Ricciardo keeps that position as Carlos Sainz gets on the power, and just finds a lack of grip in doing so. Hamilton laps Carlos Sainz as he makes his way into turn 1.
As the leaders come through, Vettel's just put in the fastest lap of the race. He's a whole lot happier on the medium compound tyres, isn't he? Which bodes well for Leclerc later on as well, doesn't it? With what now looks like his one stopper.
Yeah. Charles Leclerc is coming in right now. Karun.
It's a long way to go.
Yeah, indeed. We'll have to see whether they have the same issue on the rear. Again, slow on the rear end. I don't know what's going on there, whether it's the rear jack or something that they're struggling to release. But again, it seems slow on the rear of that Ferrari.
Hard tyres on Leclerc's car.
Well, not what we were expecting there. Same pit stop time as Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc comes onto the racetrack. He's ahead of Sebastian Vettel still. He's behind Romain Grosjean in the Haas. So the slow pit stop has cost him track position in terms of the Haas and the Ferrari. But explain that one to me, Martin Brundle. With Sebastian Vettel going so well on the medium compound tyre, why would you then put the hard compound tyre on when you're stopping that much later?
Let's wait and see, but I'm scratching my head. I was, as Karun was explaining, that yet again they've got a left rear issue. I'm seeing the white marked hard compound tyre, thinking, really? Have I seen that correctly?
Is this Charles, and it was that rear left once again. Is this Ferrari committing as into the pits now comes Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes? This is Ferrari committing Charles Leclerc to a 1-stop, Sebastian Vettel to a 2-stop. Do they think that the medium tyre isn't going to last until the end of the race?
May pay dividends. They might have the last laugh on that. It may pay dividends in the last half dozen laps.
Absolutely. Bottas comes out onto the track. Where's Max Verstappen? He's making his way down the main straight, but he's far enough back not to be troubling Valtteri Bottas here. So Bottas comes back out onto the circuit in second place ahead of Verstappen. The Caroon to you.
Yeah, indeed. Haas have run out into the pit lane for Romain Grosjean because he's got the Ferraris coming up behind. So yes, we talked about the bigger Ferrari B team, but they're also running their own race. They don't want to get entangled. Another great stop from the Haas boys there. I think, Crofty, just to go back to what Ferrari are up to, I think that they're considering the two-stop with Vettel on using both sets of new mediums that they've got and leave Leclerc to run to the end. Looking at Verstappen's pace, by the way, on that new set of softs that he went to, committing to a two-stopper, it's not that much quicker than Vettel. In fact, he's been on average losing time to Vettel in the stint.
Thanks, Caroon. Race leader is in to the pits. Lewis Hamilton, 2.6 second stop. No issues there. Valtteri Bottas in second place is making his way round turn 13 as Lewis Hamilton trundles down the pit lane. Bottas through the final chicane. Hamilton is out onto the racetrack, attempting to lead from start to finish for the 16th time in his career this afternoon. Only Ayrton Senna has had more occasions where he's led from start to finish. So far, looking very good for Hamilton in that attempt.
It's a fair old run, though, isn't it? 39 laps to the end of the race on one set of tyres for both Mercedes, but they've got it nicely covered at the moment. Still 1-2, stops out of the way. Stops were good. Ferrari can't afford to have slow pit stops at this level if they're going to take the fight to Mercedes.
Yes, Lewis Hamilton didn't start on pole, but leading from start to finish, he was definitely leading at the end of the first lap. So leading every single lap so far in this race. As I think you indicate, Martin, there's a long way to go in this race as well, and it could be that it needs a bit of time management, and it might not all be too comfortable between now and the checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, look at the different concepts at the front there. Medium, soft and hard. So Verstappen, we know, is absolutely nailed on stopping twice. Because as you pointed out, in a dry race, you've got to use at least 2 compounds.
Right, this is Nico Hülkenberg and Romain Grosjean going by Grosjean, of course, has pitted now and is down in 7th place. Hülkenberg hasn't pitted yet. On the medium compound tyre, so he could go longer during his first stint in this race and up in the points, but he is going to have to stop. And those behind him that haven't, that have already.
It's a winning racing.
It is looking like it's become a little bit more variable, more gusts as you come through turn 7, more and more of a tailwind through that corner.
It's blowing across the track, so the grandstand pushing the wind further away and across the main straight at the moment, looking by the flags that I can see.
These are long cars, the latest hybrid F1, and you can see the sort of sail on the back of the engine, top of the engine cover there. They are very prone. The cars are always sliding. They don't look like it, but you're always on the absolute limit of adhesion, and they're neutral. They're sliding in unison normally, and the aerodynamics are neutral. So if suddenly you get a bit of a crosswind, it's amazing how much difference that can make to your grip and your confidence.
We're watching Nico Hülkenberg here with Kevin Magnussen behind him. Hülkenberg's teammate, Daniel Ricciardo. You know, we mentioned that he'd been stuck behind Carlos Sainz for quite some time and then managed to overtake him, Martin. Then they came into the pits and he came out of the pits ahead of Carlos Sainz. Well, for some reason, he's now behind Carlos Sainz again. Sainz has managed to overtake Ricciardo on the track. Not quite sure how that's happened, but that's a bit more frustration for the Australian there, I would imagine, and something to delight the Carlos Sainz grandstand that have been cheering a huge amount every time their man has passed him so far this afternoon. 100%, as I've said, point scoring record here in Barcelona, but he's got a couple of places to make up to keep that run going. Valtteri Bottas now puts in the fastest lap of the race.
Yes, first man into the 1:20s. It's interesting when you look at the stats. Lewis, you know, smashes races led, races won, you know, championships, obviously. He's got 5 of those in the bag, pole positions. One stat where he's done well, but isn't dominating the same way. Race fastest laps. Yeah. It's not his speciality. he comes at his Grand Prix racing in a different way. And of course, this year you get a point for the race fastest lap.
And this year he hasn't actually scored a fastest lap yet, of course. Just looking at Charles Leclerc's lap times at the moment on the hard compound tyre, as we mentioned, he's just put in a 1:22.2. His teammate Sebastian Vettel 1:21.7. So Ferrari are going to have to swap around once again here with Vettel. We're thinking Paul di Resta at race control on that two-stop strategy.
Yeah, he is, and this is hampering it, Crofty. He's on the radio saying that he wants to get by and put some damage in. Max Verstappen, interestingly as well, he's not happy, really struggling with the rear. But both Mercedes have been instructed they will be wear limited at the end, so they need to make sure they ensure the car doesn't start sliding around too much, because they'll have to bail out quickly if it does.
So for those, Martin, watching at home thinking, right, who's going to stop again, who's not going to stop again? We're thinking Mercedes probably won't be stopping again. Max Verstappen definitely needs to stop again. Sebastian Vettel will be stopping again with his pace, and Charles Leclerc might not have to stop again. Is that about right?
Well, those hards should get to the end of the Grand Prix, but the relative pace, as you rightly said, they really need to swap them back round again now. But it's kind of the story, isn't it? They're busy racing each other. They're not racing Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah. They emerged from the winter test here in Barcelona, Ferrari, after a pep talk in the garage where the team were told this could be our year. Now, unless something dramatic happens in the next 35 laps, I don't think they'll be having the same pep talk at the end of this race. They'll be going back to Maranello thinking, how can we salvage this year? Because the race pace relative to Mercedes, the qualifying pace relative to Mercedes, just hasn't been there for them.
Winter testing was 10 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Ferrari just smashed it, didn't they? They absolutely dominated it at this track.
Bahrain, they should have won had Charles Leclerc not had his engine issues, had Sebastian Vettel not had his direction issues when he spun round in the race. That was the one that really got away.
Time behind. So Valtteri 21.7. Keep me updated, man.
He wants information out there.
Bottas was starting to come back at him. So they're playing cat and mouse up front now, just eking their tyres out.
And once again, Ferrari hold station. Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel, and you could argue in the opening laps here when Sebastian Vettel had his issues with the flat spot on that soft compound tyre, that Leclerc was being held up. And it looks like the same thing is happening this time with Leclerc ahead of Sebastian Vettel. It's almost like there's a delay in the evidence being presented to the strategy team, Karun Chandok, and there's a delay in the decision being made coming back.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. Last time round, Verstappen on the soft, 22.0. Leclerc on the hard, 22.1. Vettel on the medium, 22.0. What does that tell you? There's a lot of ups and downs. The consistency isn't there in terms of the lap pace. They're having to sort of do a quick one and then a back off one a little bit. To answer your question, by the way, if Lewis does want to pit again, he still will come out ahead of the Ferraris. And we know Verstappen has to pit again. So really, Mercedes could do whatever strategy they wanted between now and the end of the race, with Hamilton at least.
Yeah, it depends if Valtteri Bottas has to pit again, of course, as well, because he'll be stuck right in the middle of it. The thing is, Martin, yes, Vettel's pace is brilliant, but he's got DRS, and that is helping his pace, of course, behind Charles Leclerc. But how much is his pace being compromised on the rest of the lap? As he's trying to get past here, there's no team orders. He's looking for a move. This is where his pace is being compromised.
Leclerc very close there to the double move you're not allowed to do. You've got to leave a car's width in the braking zone. I always think it should be a car's width and a little bit, because you've got to get a car through it at high speed. But once again, it's not making a lot of sense to me. Ferrari treading on their own tails.
Does this all stem from the pre-season comment from Mattia Binotto that we have a number one and we have a number two driver, and then Charles Leclerc's performances made him rethink that a little bit, and certainly the questions were being asked as to whether that should be the policy, and now they're so careful, Ferrari, to be seen to be giving equal opportunity for both drivers. They're not making the right racing decision.
Wasn't he? There was never nobody, I don't know anybody in the paddock who didn't doubt he was going to jump in the Ferrari and be right on it. So I don't quite know why they might have thought that. But Leclerc, of course, in that DRS zone, which is registered just before turn 9, measured just before turn 9, he had it as well because he was catching a back marker. So we'll see what Vettel does now, opens up, so it's registered just coming out of the last chicane, opens up somewhere near the start-finish line, but he's not close enough this time. They're now 24 seconds off the lead. So that's the point Karim was making. You know, 21 seconds for a pit stop. Mercedes can do just what they like.
Absolutely.
As long as they both do it, because a pit stop for Lewis might give Valtteri the race.
Of the top 5, only Max Verstappen definitely has to pit again. And Verstappen at the moment, 4 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. He can manage his own pace to a certain extent. The one thing that Verstappen, if it carries, the thing is, the pace of Leclerc and Vettel is good enough so that Verstappen, when he does pit again, he is going to have to get past both Ferraris. So from that point of view, the podium is still on for them because passing is so difficult here. However,
meanwhile, it's hurting Vettel's tyres as well, but that's a tough call. It's easy to sit up here and talk about what you would do, swap this, swap that, but
I know what's going to be said on that hashtag Ask Crofty after the race. It'll be, I know what I'd do, Crofty. I'd ban team orders. And we wouldn't have the team orders, and we just let them race full stop. I don't know how necessarily you do that, but it just shows when you do start putting team orders into the equation, things can get a little bit tricky from time to time. Sebastian Vettel's gaining once again, but the corner comes up way too early as far as the German driver is concerned, and he stays behind his teammates. We haven't got access to the Ferrari team radio in our ears at the moment, but I wonder what has been said on that team radio. We'll get Paul di Resta at race control to keep across it. In the sunshine here in Barcelona on lap 35 this afternoon, where Lewis Hamilton leads, and an 8-second lead he's got at the moment. 8.5 seconds to his teammate Valtteri Bottas, with Max Verstappen in third. Paul di Resta at race control.
Yeah, Crofty, it's chaos down in Ferrari. I'm listening to the team radio. One engineer, Leclerc's engineer's telling them they're both on the same strategy. Vettel's engineer saying they're on different strategies, and Sebastian Vettel saying, well, why are we racing each other? Let me go and get on. There's confusion, still confusion. This is why Mercedes are excelling. This is why they're dominating them at the moment.
What was Lewis Hamilton's quote after Baku? Ferrari performed underperformed at 2 races. They performed well at another 2 races. We've performed well at all 4 races.
If we are stopping again, we drop 7 seconds behind him. We need to overtake him and Verstappen on track. So where was critical on the first set?
So they're basically telling Valtteri Bottas, this is why we're asking you to do this pace, staying out and not coming in again. Meanwhile, confusion reigning at Ferrari, and still Seb's behind Charles.
You see him looking to the right there. Okay, that's an interesting piece of information. So where was critical on the first set? We've measured them since you handed them back. You're not getting any deposit back on them because they were worn out, and there goes the switch.
Not where we were expecting it. Should have come maybe down the main straight, maybe should have come about 3-4 laps ago, but that sounds like a repeat of something we said about 20 laps ago, Martin Brundle, but finally it has happened.
They've definitely spent 2 or 3 laps too long working that out, and Seb would have seen the hard compound tyres on it, thinking, really, we're on exactly the same strategy? Anyway, that's been done now, and we'll see who's still got some tyre left towards the end of the Grand Prix, because that is, as Mercedes said, critical.
It is still leading and has led every single lap. It's an absorbing, for some very bizarre reasons, Spanish Grand Prix that I'm thoroughly enjoying, I must admit. I don't know if Nico Hülkenberg's enjoyed his first stint or not, but he's finally come into the pits on lap 36, and he's now back down in 16th.
That's interesting. When Leclerc was let past Vettel did a 1:24, horribly slow lap, and Leclerc's just done the same thing. It really cost them. There ought to be a nicer way to smooch your teammate past. You don't need to lose that amount of time.
You just wondered, did they do it at the right part of the track as well? To me, the obvious one is down the main straight when your man behind's got some DRS, but they did it coming out of turn 4.
Yeah.
And you're then straight into some corners where you're losing performance because you're so close to your teammate in front.
Kvyat's just done a personal best down there in 8th. Lance Stroll has stayed on his teammate Sergio Perez's gearbox. They're down in 14th and 15th. Been a difficult weekend for Racing Point, and their upgrades, they've not had the speed they were hoping for. They're now up to 13th and 14th. Hülkenberg, the last man to pit in the race.
So Lance Stroll getting lapped there by Lewis Hamilton. Think about the Racing Point. They've got the budget this year, Martin. They've got the new investment, of course. This is how Danny Kvyat got past Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen went to the right, and Kvyat reacted very well to go to the left there. That was a good move. Another good move from Danny Kvyat. He's having a bit of a stonking race. But that Racing Point, for all the extra investment, for all the new life breathed into that team, the car on the track at the moment is very much a legacy of the administration and the financial problems last year. That doesn't sort itself out overnight and might take half a season more for them to finally start getting the benefit of all the extra resources.
Yes, hear what you say. I still imagine they're pretty disappointed with and what is a pure car circuit, isn't it? It's pure chassis circuit around here.
Without a doubt, they'll be disappointed. Franz Tost is with us on the Toro Rosso pit wall. Danny Kvyat putting in some storming moves this afternoon.
Yeah, that's what for the race is. He should not sleep, he should push.
Well, yeah, we agree with that. And it's not that we're sounding surprised, we're just dead pleased for him. And that was a neat bit of a reaction there with Kevin Magnussen jinking to the right.
No, it was a fantastic move, I must say. Danny is doing a real good race, he had a real good start, and I hope that he can continue like this, and that's fine.
In terms of tyre performance, is this beginning to look like a nice one-stopper for you, or are there still various issues you're trying to monitor?
Well, we are just calculating everything. We're in a good position because we have for both drivers a second set of new prime. That means we are flexible. We can do a second stop, but we can also go with a one stop. Depends on the traffic, depends on the performance.
Keeping your options open. Franz, thanks ever so much for the time being. So Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas both on the mediums, been going for 11 and 12 laps. Max Verstappen 18 laps on those soft tyres. Are they thinking about a change soon down at Red Bull to bring him in, and if they do, where does he feed back into the track? Because there's a possibility, Martin, that he's going to be fed back, certainly behind the Ferraris, and not in the position he might want to be.
France would terrify me as a team boss. I don't know why. You come on the radio with that kind of, yeah. Do not sleep.
Which team boss did terrify you? You can think about that for a couple of seconds. I think I know the answer.
I've got a lot of respect for France, and he's a pure racer. I like listening to him about his ideas of where F1 should be. 3 into 1 normally doesn't go, and somehow they all came away unscathed from that first turn. Leclerc got compromised by Vettel after he made by Verstappen after he made up a place. It rather sums up Ferrari's afternoon, doesn't it? Getting in each other's way down in turn 2.
Yeah, he was behind Valtteri Bottas. There he is, switching to the left-hand side, and then down the inside comes Lewis Hamilton. Bottas in the middle, Vettel went wide, and Bottas losing so much downforce through that corner because Lewis had swept through and passed him. Did very well not to touch.
Yeah, and Lewis knows momentum will, even if he did touch on the inside, momentum would take the other two to the outside. But all 3 of those in a heap was equally as possible as all 3 of them emerging out of turn 2.
Paul di Resta, we saw a team radio message for Lewis Hamilton there. You were monitoring that at race control.
Yeah, Hamilton saying these tyres are going to be a stretch, and he asked how long have they got to go to the end. And the team said 28 laps. He's not sure it's going to happen, and of course Verstappen hovering around there is going to make Mercedes feel a bit uncomfortable, because if they pull the trigger, they'll need to go with them quickly to react. Further down, Crofty, I'm not sure if you saw it, but Sainz, although Ricciardo passed Sainz before the pit stop, straight after it, again, it was the other way.
Yeah, I mentioned it because we saw it on the timing screen, but I've not seen how it happened, to be fair. What I do know is Ricciardo's just been lapped by the race leader. So Martin Brundle, 2 questions for you. A, which team principal that you raced under did terrify you the most?
Ken Tyrrell could be pretty terrifying, actually, especially when he just smashed his car up.
Yeah, and the second question, I'll wait for in a moment. Here's Sebastian Vettel into the pits. 2-stop strategy for Vettel. Not what he would have wanted. Medium tyres going on again because they had another set of the medium tyres for him.
And the left rear wheel gun was sensationally good this time, and it's a 2.2 second stop.
Which is crucial, because there's Pierre Gasly coming down the main straight, and Sebastian Vettel, I think, will want to get ahead of Gasly, but can he do so? No. Gasly is ahead of Sebastian Vettel. So even though it was half the time of his previous pit stop, Sebastian Vettel comes back out behind the Red Bull of Pierre Gasly. Charles Leclerc once more is free to go off and run his race without his teammates around him. We know the man in third has got to stop again. If the top two have to stop again as well, that starts to bring this race very neatly into where Charles Leclerc could be attacking towards the end, because he's on the hard compound tyre, which might explain why Ferrari put him on the hard tyre, thinking that the top three will definitely pit again.
Absolutely.
Oh, he's going to go for it down the inside, Sebastian Vettel. Pierre Gasly was ahead of him after Vettel pitted, and Sebastian Vettel, I think, knew he had to get that overtake done right there. Because
braking distance is so short into 10, despite it being a massive stop. That's a good effort. Remembering cars are over 4 meters long, you've got to be, and you're braking way past the 100-meter board. You've got to be much better on the brakes, but those fresh tyres working a treat for him.
And Gasly's got to be aware of where Vettel is actually heading to beyond the apex as well, because he's going to be going wider and then cutting straight across the man he's just overtaken.
Absolutely, and you still got to make the apex, which he did just about.
So Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Leclerc and Vettel. And the top five separated by 44 seconds. However, do the top three all need to stop again? Can Mercedes stretch this out?
Vettel driving like he really means business now.
Well, he's able to push as hard as I think he wants now for the remainder of this race. Tyre management going on in the top two. Verstappen, we know, has definitely got to come in again. So Vettel is definitely racing Verstappen. The gap between them at the moment is round about 21 seconds, or I'll put it another way, a pit stop.
And Leclerc too. I think we could see Vettel cruise up behind his teammate again.
We certainly could. Daniel Ricciardo's now got a bit of DRS on Carlos Sainz down the next straight, as he tries to get back ahead of the McLaren again. They're having a good old tussle, the Spaniard and the Australian this afternoon. And elsewhere, Lando Norris, after running wide at turn 3 on the opening lap, struggling down in 15th, sadly for him at the moment. Max Verstappen running in 3rd.
Leclerc's last lap was a 23.0.
No way he's going to the end.
And Vettel a 20.0. Said he was driving like he meant business. That is fast.
Into the pits comes Antonio Giovinazzi as we watch Jos Verstappen. Max Verstappen convinced that Leclerc is not going to the end on this set of tyres. Ferrari would want him to go to the end.
Yeah, he knows he's on hard compound, presumably. But Max obviously thinks there's no way you can get to the end of this Grand Prix with just 2 sets of tyres in a competitive way anyway.
And into the pits now comes Max Verstappen. Karoon, down to you.
Yeah, I was just about to say Red Bull Racing come running out, and that's why those conversations are ongoing. Vettel last time round, a storming fastest lap, by the way, 2 seconds quicker than Leclerc. Pretty good stop there for Max. He's onto the medium tyre now, which we saw working well for Vettel, both in this stint and in the previous stint. So yeah, it's going to get tricky for Leclerc, isn't it? If Vettel gets up behind him, do they make that phone call? Or actually, with that pace advantage, he could just breeze by.
Max Verstappen into turn 1. Sebastian Vettel heading down the main straight as I speak. Charles Leclerc pursuing Kimi Raikkonen, who's already been lapped, into turn 4. Verstappen's chasing after Leclerc. Vettel's chasing after Verstappen, chasing after Leclerc. And Mercedes have a bit more time on the board now if they need to.
23, including this lap out of the tyres, but he did a 20 flat at 1 minute 20.3. He is 1.5 seconds faster than the next fastest man on the track, leader Lewis Hamilton.
And looking at the right rear tyre of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. Yeah,
that's got to come in. That's delaminating. That needs to come in the pits. That's blisters.
So his last lap time was a 1:21.9. Valtteri Bottas put in a 1:20.8. Let's put his tyres, or able to, a little bit better. Does Hamilton need to pit again? Does Bottas have the ability to stay out?
Does he indeed? But you can't leave that tyre out because it can fall apart.
Yeah. as we've seen Sebastian Vettel suffer in Austria and Spa in previous years. No sign of any movement down in the Mercedes garage, but you're right, Martin, it didn't look particularly healthy, that right rear tyre.
Again, with such long, fast right-handers like turn 3 and turn 9, for example, turn 4 is a long corner as well. The inside tyres are a bit of a passenger, but it doesn't stop them overheating sometimes.
Paul de Resta is at Sky Race Control this afternoon.
Yeah, I think Hamilton's just had the message. They're probably going to take that safety margin and do the pit stop. He's been told to use the tyre. I can't tell you the word they used. It was something B, Samba B or something. And Hamilton just said, do I need to do it? And he said, yeah, confirm, Lewis, on you go. Confirms what Martin was saying with that rear right tyre as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you meant you can't tell us because there's a family audience listening. Are they getting a little bit tense down there?
Mercedes out.
They are preparing for a pit stop instead and charging into the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton slamming on the brakes at the last moment. No, it's Valtteri Bottas coming in. It's Bottas pitting first on to the soft compound tyre. We're expecting Hamilton to come in after we saw the state of his tyres, but they're pitting Bottas first. So looking now to where Charles Leclerc is, he's just rounding the final turn and making his way. Down past our commentary box, Lando Norris has gone off, Lance Stroll has gone off with him in the racing points. And I wonder if this means a safety car. Norris has managed to get back out on the track. There's a lot of gravel as he goes right across the track there. Bottas is ahead of Leclerc, just to let you know after that pit stop.
A virtual safety car or a full safety car will give a cheap pit stop now to anybody.
Safety car's coming out, Martin.
So that plays into Hamilton's hands then, doesn't it?
Okay, Lando, do you have any damage? Do you have any damage?
I'm sorry, guys, I'm out.
Can you bring the car back? Can you bring the car back?
No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys.
You rather think then it might have been Lando Norris's fault, that incident, from the way he was speaking there. But the safety car now deployed, and this is going to close the whole field up as through turn 1 went Lance Stroll and Lando Norris. Norris around the outside, and as he went into turn 2, Lance Stroll's got the advantage. Norris was trying to squeeze through, and yeah, he took out the racing point and himself.
I think Stroll probably thought he would yield, he'd give up on that, the McLaren behind him.
Hamilton has pitted, the race leader, and gets that, well, cheap pit stop, because he can come in and not lose as much time in comparison to others who have just pitted. Verstappen, for instance, Vettel, for instance, Bottas, for instance. Leclerc, of course, can now pit as well, but he's going to lose a place to Verstappen and to Vettel probably by making that pit stop, but they're all going to concertina together and start again when the two cars have been cleared away. For the first time in Formula 1, Lando Norris retires from a Grand Prix. Lance Stroll's 14-race finishing streak ends today. Into the pits now comes Charles Leclerc, medium tyres going on. He's got
nearly an unsafe release there. I think they got away with it.
He's got half a chance of coming out ahead of his teammate Sebastian Vettel. There is Vettel, he's actually just gone through. So he now goes past Leclerc once again.
Vettel put those tyres on lap 40. So he's got the same tyres, 7 laps fresher. And they'll all be concertinaed up, the alligator behind the safety car. But of course, until they catch the safety car, but in any event, you're trundling down the pit lane on the 80 km/h, 50 mph speed limiter, and your rivals are travelling much less fast at that point.
So the order, Hamilton from Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Leclerc. And because of the safety car and burnt Mylander, we see behind the wheel.
There's a lot of gravel there.
Yeah, copy.
Nicely on cue.
Safety car's going way too slow.
Yeah, but Bernd Mylander will think he's throwing that V8 engine Mercedes into the corners, but Hamilton...
He's slow though, it is slow today, the safety car. He's trying to collect the field up,
yeah.
They're doing 60, 70 Ks around the corners.
So he's got a job to do to close the field up, Martin, but Hamilton's got a job to do in trying to keep temperature into his tyres. That's why he's so eager.
That's why he's hustling the safety car.
Behind him, it might take a while to clear the gravel here, to let the lapped cars past as well. Ricardo, Perez, Hulkenberg, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi all a lap down.
They'll remind Lewis he's got to stay within 10 car lengths of the safety car. You're not allowed to drop too far back.
This is going to be a really interesting restart from here on in.
They can get through, as you can see. They've got their own goat track going through there now, but that gravel to our left on the inside of turn 3 is not ideally placed at all.
No, that caused when Lando Norris tried to get back onto the track and limp around, deposited a load of gravel onto the racetrack. We can see this incident once again. Norris on the inside catches that right-left wheel of the Racing Point, and yeah, to blame. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the stewards have a look at this one, because he hadn't made the corner.
I'm going with a racing incident on that one in terms of, you know, Lando was well alongside.
Danny Kvyat's afternoon not being helped by the fact that they didn't seem to be ready with the tyres for him there. And in the end...
Stacking them, look.
So Danny Kvyat and Alex Albon having their race compromised there. And,
badly,
just got a bit fingers and thumbs, didn't it?
And Magnussen's cleared them. Magnussen and Grosjean, I think, has cleared them nicely.
Yeah, it's propelled Carlos Sainz up into the points. That was Hamilton's pit stop. Emerging back out to the sunshine again as Lando Norris's McLaren is loaded onto the back of the truck to head back to the Grand Prix, to the garage. So who does this bring into play for various reasons? The mix-up at Toro Rosso has kept Kvyat in the points, but Albon now out of it. Sainz is up into 10th. Hulkenberg, who started from the pit lane, now at 12th. When did Hulkenberg...
Have another chance. Thinking about this stuff. How many cars we lose position?
Stay out.
It's quite an old message.
Yeah, Hulkenberg's on the soft tyre. He might be a bit racy at the end of this as well. Ricciardo behind him. We'll be hoping to get into the points.
Oh, not necessarily. There's Sebastian there. Yeah. Is it worth trying another set of tyres? Definitely got his thinking cap on today, hasn't he, Vettel? Karun's got news.
Yeah, guys, just looking at who the winners and losers were for that pit stop, I was actually standing by Toro Rosso, and there was complete. They didn't realize that the cars were already there. They're just a bit late, and that, as you said, properly compromised them. It's allowed Carlos Sainz to sneak into the points now, so he's got ahead of Albon and behind Kvyat.
Michael Massey, the FIA race director until the summer break at the very least, and doing a fine job so far this season, and taking over, of course, in tragic circumstances after the death of Charlie Whiting prior to the Australian Grand Prix. Lance Stroll, not been a good weekend for him at all.
I think Stroll thought that he'd got him covered. He would yield, he'd back off. And for me, Norris thought he'd earned some space from where he'd positioned his car. It wasn't a leery move.
He wasn't ahead at any time.
I think I'm giving it 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
He wasn't ahead at any time.
No, he wasn't, but he was close enough in there to be in tight, in my view, to be in tight to some space. Others will say, well, look, he wasn't going to get through there, he should lift it off, but that's not what racing driving is all about.
I'm not surprised Sebastian Vettel was asking that question about pitting again, Martin, but because there are no new sets of tyres to stick on, I suppose for Ferrari, it's just keep it as it is.
Yeah, so where are they? Where are they in the queue? I mean, that played beautifully for Lewis's blistered tyre, and they didn't bring him in first, either of the two Mercedes, because he'd got 11-second lead at the time. He's right at the front of the queue. Bottas has got to be at least 6 down. Vettel and Leclerc, 8 or 9 cars down in the queue, maybe 10 cars down in the queue.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to release the lapped runners and riders out of this queue before we can get going again. The thing is, when we have the restart...
So just think about rear brake temperatures. Front calipers are getting quite warm. Because rear brakes are stone cold.
He's been stamping on those brakes behind the safety car. But when we get going again, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen and Leclerc all are going to be on tyres, Martin, very similar in age. Sebastian Vettel, as Lando Norris walks back with his crash helmet still on. apologising, as you heard, to the team on the radio. I think feeling himself that it was his fault. Now the lapped cars may overtake, and there are 1, 2, 3. Yes, well counted. Alex Albon, Nico Hülkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, Kimi Raikkonen, Antonio Giovinazzi, George Russell, Robert Kubica can all now overtake. Now, whether they are going to be allowed to catch up to the back, I'm not quite sure.
Well, that's going to sort the restart order out nicely for us, isn't it? So they've elected to do that.
Well, this is why they brought this rule in. The lap cars can overtake just to get out of the way of those on the lead lap fighting for position, so that the back markers don't get in the way of the restart.
It was one of Charlie Whiting's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Concepts. It can get a bit frustrating on a very long lap sometimes. There they are, the 8 that were allowed through, and that's it's going to give us a nice clean restart. It's not mandatory, it's not absolutely certain, depends on weather conditions and the stage of the race that you're at, but it seemed a sensible decision right now, didn't it? Because that's energized this race beautifully.
It's the concept absolutely spot on. I'm with you, and you've said it many times over the years. It's a shame they can't just drop back rather than overtaking and going round again. But until they sort out a way for the timing screens to update, so that
because we just lose another lap or two, and especially, as I say, on a long lap like Spa, for example, it gets a little bit tedious. But we'll take it for now. But if they drop to the back of the field, they're a lap down anyway, and they can stay a lap down.
It's a gorgeous afternoon here in Barcelona, Martin. Sun's out, blue skies, a few wispy white clouds overhead, nice warm temperature in this middle part of May. But if you're talking temperature, tyres and brakes getting very cold on those cars now. And it's going to be so difficult for the drivers after quite a few laps behind this safety car to try and manage those temperatures, so they're in a position where the equipment can let them go and overtake and brake a bit later.
Yeah, they're designed and optimized, obviously, for braking at massively high speed, lots of energy, and they're not particularly good at safety car speed.
Absolutely.
And if they were, they'd fail very quickly in the Grand Prix.
They certainly would. Lewis Hamilton has led every single lap of this race so far. Mercedes with a 1-2 at the moment. If you haven't been with us all season, they've been 1-2 at the checkered flag in every single race this season, looking for a 5th consecutive 1-2, finish it with tie their best ever run in Formula 1. They did it in 2014 and across 2015 and 2016 as well. Ferrari also managed 5 1-2 finishes in a row, the final 5 races of 2002, but it's under pressure now because the field are so close together.
Verstappen's going to feel under pressure. 2 Ferraris behind him with DRS and their power down the straight. This brings them all back into the fuel window, of course. 2 or 3 laps coasting behind the safety car sorts any fuel issues out, so they should be able to go for it. Safety car goes round again because we've got to wait for the lap runners to catch the pack.
Yep.
I think as long as you let them go by half a lap, you could get on with it. But anyway, got another lap now, but I think Verstappen will be the man under pressure from the Ferraris.
But don't forget the 2 Ferraris as well, Martin, could also be under pressure from Pierre Gasly behind them. Gasly's on the soft compound tyre. The 2 Ferraris are on the mediums. Could Gasly, with those racier, grippier tyres, be putting a challenge into the Ferraris as well? This could be a mega restart when we finally get it going. Karun, down to you. Safety cars coming in at the end of this lap.
Okay, then just a quick one. Martin, you're talking about how the safety car did appear to be going a bit slow. I tell you what, I watched that gaggle of cars, the lapped ones, come past me, the likes of Albon, Hülkenberg, and so on. They were flying past because obviously they had to catch the lap up. Sainz, you'd be a little, if you were Sainz, you'd be a bit nervous because Albon's going to ride right behind you with a hot set of tyres. But yeah, battle up at the front trophy, all to play for.
We have seen 3 cars try and emerge into turn 1, side by side by side. Hamilton got the better of that. Vettel lost out. What's going to happen this time around, I wonder?
And a new regulation for this year, you don't overtake at the first safety car line. You can't overtake until you've crossed the line, as they call it, capital L, which is the start line.
Yeah.
Basically, you cannot overtake until that point. So Hamilton, he will become the de facto safety car. He controls the pack. The 10-length car rule falls away now. It's Lewis that's in charge, and he can bolt just when he likes, but he's got to give the safety car enough time to get out of the road.
So when the safety car goes into the lane, Lewis Hamilton can lead the charge to the line. Hamilton from his teammate Bottas, Verstappen from Vettel, from Leclerc, from Pierre Gasly. Grosjean, Magnussen, Kvyat and Sainz, the top 10 behind them. The lap runners have all joined the back of the train. Lewis Hamilton is now flying, trying to get the jump on the rest, as it's like the fastest, longest train you've ever seen going through that chicane. And Hamilton seems to have survived the restart, but look, Sebastian Vettel is now under pressure from Pierre Gasly, as I mentioned. Gasly's going wheel to wheel, and on the Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel putting pressure on Max Verstappen. Magnussen on the inside of Grosjean as well. Leclerc ahead of Gasly. Grosjean goes wide, just in front of the McLaren of Carlos Sainz, but now Pierre Gasly's in trouble, and Kevin Magnussen's alongside him on the run down towards turn 4. On the inside, Kevin Magnussen, can he get past Gasly? Gasly's hanging on in there somehow, now has the inside line into turn 5. One of the Toro Rossos, Kvyat, I think, into the gravel, but coming back out onto the track, and somehow they all emerge pretty unscathed there. Great battle between Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly. Gasly's one out.
Leclerc caught napping on the restart and got away with it, but I think the two Haas cars just touched as well, maybe tyre to tyre, and Grosjean getting back on track. I think he'll get away with that one for an unsafe return to the racetrack. I think he was okay on that, but Hamilton absolutely pinning it at the front.
Yeah, here we go then. Two Haas's behind Gasly, locked up. Did they touch there, Martin? Grosjean having to go to the escape road.
I was looking at the front two, and Gasly got a bit of a swapper on in the middle of turn 3, and that's what led Magnussen at him.
They certainly did touch. And Hamilton 2 seconds clear of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Charles Leclerc running in 5th place. The stewards are going to have a look at that Norris and Stroll incident after the race to see if any blame does need to be apportioned there. Grosjean ahead of Carlos Sainz, 8th and 9th. Danny Kvyat runs in 10th, ahead of his teammate Alex Albon, trying to get back into the points again.
Well, Lewis's rear brakes might have been stone cold, and his front brakes very hot, and his tyres cold because the safety car is going too slowly, and he pulls a 1:19.8 on his first flying lap.
Yeah, he certainly bolted from that final chicane there, and was well clear of any trouble behind him. You're right, Leclerc was caught napping just a little bit, but Gasly had those soft compound tyres to give him a bit of extra grip, and a bit of stickiness that got him alongside the Ferrari.
Yeah, obviously Leclerc on the hard tyre. Now he's swapped those now, hasn't he, of course, so maybe he just got a little bit of wheel spin, got a bit sideways as he tried to accelerate away.
Hamilton getting himself out of any threat behind from DRS when that starts to get enabled with another fastest lap of a 1:18.4. Valtteri Bottas is now about 5 seconds behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen is right on Bottas's tail, under a second certainly.
The DRS enabled then, and that is what's going to make the Ferraris fast down the pit straight. A super job Verstappen's doing this year, isn't he? He's driving so nicely, not winning a whole lot of races, because the car's not fast enough at the moment for one reason or another, but he's driving beautifully.
Finished 4th or better in each of the last 9 races. Has Max Verstappen finished higher than he started, or hasn't finished lower than he started since Hungary last year, the DNF that he got there? Certainly on the charge at the moment. Valtteri Bottas, though, putting in a very quick first sector, and he needed to do that on this lap to get out of a DRS threat. That could see Verstappen under pressure down the straight here from the man behind him, Sebastian Vettel. It's not been Vettel's afternoon, but he still harbours hope of standing on the podium at the end of it.
I wonder if Bottas has hung back a little bit to give himself lots of battery and to go for that one championship point for fastest lap. Didn't quite make it, did he?
No, Danny Kvyat has been passed by Carlos Sainz. In 10th now, Kvyat, Sainz up into 9th, just watching the cars go through, and Sebastian Vettel hasn't got DRS to charge towards Max Verstappen, but Romain Grosjean's got a bit of DRS here. Kevin Magnussen on the inside. He's just trying to block off any potential threat from his teammate there.
Kev does keep going over there and defending fresh air. That's the second time we've seen him do that, but he feels the need to be over there. But yeah, that was what Bottas was doing. He backed off, charged his battery, found a bit of space, because then Verstappen closing in, he said, and then launched it, but he was 3/10 shy of Hamilton's fastest lap.
Talking of fastest laps, I'm told, Paul de Resta, there's quite some chatter about that on the radio.
It's amazing the chat that's going on, Crofty. Like Martin said, he's nursed him in to get a gap. They've both been given the strat mode. Strat mode 5 is what Hamilton got to do the lap. But Hamilton was on the radio on that last lap in every sector saying, how's the lap time update? How's the lap time? I want another go if he beats me. So it's amazing what this rule's done for one single point.
But he hasn't got a fastest lap yet this season. He has the fastest lap in his hands at the moment. Can he keep a grip on that with 10 laps to go? The top 5, Martin Brundle, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel and Leclerc, they're the top 5 that have finished in some order at every single race so far this year.
Verstappen still just staying at a DRS zone ahead of Vettel, who's similarly a reasonable way, 2.3 seconds clear of Leclerc. But will they go for it again? I mean, it's 21 points available this year.
Magnussen's defending thin air again. Grosjean knows he's going to do that. He's gone round the outside. And once again, Romain Grosjean has to go to the escape road.
Round that bollard.
Goes round the bollard, rejoins in a safe place. But Magnussen is defending where he thinks is best, and Grosjean just can't find a way past.
Cost him a lot of ground round there, didn't it?
Yeah.
Must be pretty dirty out there. But I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between these two. And K-Mag doesn't yield to anybody, does he?
No. Not that I know of.
Look at that difference with the rear wing open. Yeah. So Grosjean realising, as soon as you go over those little sausage curbs, you're then obliged to go round the bollard on there. I like that. I think it's a good way of penalising an error without the car being in a gravel trap and out of the race.
Just going over that bollard, though, I wonder if Grosjean had a little bit of damage from under the floor. Alex Albon taking the wide route through turn 11, and Daniel Ricciardo is onto him at the moment. Albon under a little bit of pressure. It's the gap out in front now, 2.5 seconds between Hamilton and Bottas. Verstappen, Vettel and Leclerc and Gasly have all put in personal best times on that last lap. As there goes Carlos Sainz on Romain Grosjean down into turn 1. Sainz is on the inside. Grosjean's been forced wide again. And this time around, he's getting used to taking the long way round at the end of the main straight, Romain Grosjean. And he had to back away, otherwise he felt there would have been contact.
Well, looking at that, I think it'd be better to ignore the braking zone in turn 1 and just go round there anyway, because it looks like you get this tremendous run into turn 3.
You just wonder there, Sainz wasn't quite alongside enough for it to look like Grosjean was taking advantage of the runoff area to keep the place. But I would imagine if he keeps doing that, Martin, the stewards are going to keep taking a look at it. Let's just have a look once more from Carlos Sainz's perspective. And they touched.
A little touch.
And that then compromised Sainz coming out of turn 1.
Yeah, young Mick Schumacher got himself a penalty for an unsafe return to the racetrack, but he just went straight back on the track. He didn't go around the bollard.
That bollard is there to stop people gaining the advantage, but Grosjean's making the best of it.
Yeah, but as I say, that looks pretty fast around there, doesn't it? You're not losing a whole lot. You're certainly not losing a place, and you're not losing a whole lot of time.
Right, I think we can watch Carlos Sainz again. It's not a replay. He's gone a different way this time around, and he's got Grosjean before the braking zone into turn 1, and Carlos Sainz is up into 8th place and giving his grandstand reason to get on their feet. Grosjean's in a bit of bother here because Kvyat's coming back at him, and now Albon and Ricciardo as well.
as you say, did it do some damage to Grosjean's car, because he was on the offensive, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Now he's been on the defensive ever since.
And Paul di Resta at race control.
You've just said it, Crofty. I think what you've got to look at is Danny Rick. He's just been unleashed from Hulkenberg, and he's the one charging through. Toro Rosso, we know, have had a superb car here all weekend, and it looks like Haas's day is just going to get worse. I can't imagine what Gunther Steiner must be thinking when they're racing side by side like that and going to throw very, very good points away.
Yeah, it didn't look like anything had been instructed to either of the drivers. They were racing wheel to wheel. Kevin Magnussen's survived it. Romain Grosjean, well, if he finishes in the points, this will be a very good last few laps from him.
Sainz, fastest man in the first sector in the entire Grand Prix. Certainly got some pace. I'm a big fan of Carlos Sainz, but I'm a reasonably lone voice actually in the paddock with that one. He's not as highly regarded as I believe he should be.
When he gets into a car, Martin, that can give him a chance at regular podiums, I think other people will be joining you on that one. Look, here's Danny Kvyat having a little look at Romain Grosjean, a bit too far behind on that occasion. Out in front, 2.5 seconds still the gap. Verstappen 3 seconds back in third place. Sebastian Vettel trying to keep him a little bit honest. And Charles Leclerc in fifth at the moment. And the stewards just noting the incident between Grosjean and Sainz, but not saying whether they're going to make any decision on it just yet.
I'm astonished the two Ferraris are not coming at the Red Bull with DRS. Well, they're not in the DRS zone, but getting in the DRS zone and then using it.
It's medium tyres against soft tyres, isn't it? Does it take the mediums a couple of laps longer to warm up, and then do they have the better pace? Is that what we're going to see in the last 3 or 4 laps? Or has Verstappen got this nicely under control? Hamilton at the moment, and Verstappen's actually looking at Verstappen on the mediums as well. So, yeah, I think you're right there, Martin.
Yeah, I really thought they'd be coming at him, but I mean, they're doing very similar lap times, but it's all status quo, isn't it?
It is a little bit. One thing is for sure, Gasly on the soft compound tyre is losing a bit of pace in comparison to them. He's been detached from that train where you might have expected the other way around. Oh, look, here's the Toro Rosso having a go down into turn 1. Grosjean under pressure and losing another place. Danny Kvyat has got past him. Kvyat up into 9th. Albon now trying to push the Haas around turn 3. Daniel Ricciardo getting some nice slipstreaming to keep behind Alex Albon as well as he tries to get himself into the points. It's not inconceivable that could still happen. But Grosjean really at risk now of not scoring a point here this afternoon. He hasn't scored a point so far this season.
Kvyat's overtaker of the race, isn't he?
Look at that wing mirror.
Yeah, something's broken on that, isn't it? About as useful as a chocolate fire guard, the mirrors on these things. They seem like they're more aerodynamic devices now. Yeah, it's broken, isn't it? The stay on his mirror.
It certainly is. Lap 61, 5 laps to go, 2.7 seconds separating the top 2. Once again, Sebastian Vettel separated by 1/10 of a second from Max Verstappen in terms of lap time, but still at a DRS range. Charles Leclerc just dropping a little bit further back. Pierre Gasly can't threaten Leclerc. Kevin Magnussen's got 7th all to himself at this moment in time. Carlos Sainz about 3 seconds back on Magnussen in 8th. And then comes this little battle here. Albon having a look at Grosjean. Grosjean had DRS to save him on that particular occasion. Grosjean in the last points position. Albon, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Raikkonen and Perez.
Grosjean is struggling with tires, so let's go get that point.
He's struggling a little bit, and Alex Albon being given the encouragement. Everyone running in this race, bar Lance Stroll and Lando Norris, will be going off to see the stewards at the end of this race as they look at that particular incident to decide was anyone at fault. In the Drivers' Championship, Alex Albon 3 points, Danny Kvyat on 3 points, Stroll 2-point scoring finishes so far for Racing Point this season, down in 14th place. And in front, Martin, no one seeming to make a move at the moment as Alex Albon's mum watching, going through all the emotions there.
Yeah, Daniel Kvyat, clearly the overtaker of the race, I would say.
Yeah.
Don't know how people will vote for driver of the race. Well, been some solid performances all through the field. Hamilton's bossed it, hasn't he, at the front, to be honest. He's had it under control. He's put some manners back on Valtteri Bottas. Safety car played beautifully into his hands. Been some decent racing in the midfield.
A lot of questions will be asked about Ferrari's strategy early on. Did the safety car kind of make that a bit irrelevant by the end? Those questions will still be asked.
Well, it didn't really, Crofty, because it gave Mercedes a free pit stop, didn't it? You know, they could do what they like with the strategy. And so, you know, the damage was done earlier on. I mean, yes, the safety car, Constantine did them all back up, but the damage was long done by them.
It's very true. It's not the first time this season people will be asking questions, of course, about Ferrari's strategy in a race. Mercedes on for their 49th 1-2 finish in Formula 1. And the run of results, the list of results in 2019 so far, it sounds like a sound check, doesn't it, for a rock concert. Mercedes 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Albon and Ricciardo scrapping it out for 11th place at the moment. And ahead of them, Romain Grosjean. I'm quite thankful that he's got had a bit of DRS in the last couple of laps, but he might not have it here to use to defend. Albon is gaining on him, and gaining on him, and gaining on him, and Grosjean goes a little bit towards the left, and Albon says, I'll go around the outside, not a problem. Under braking, Grosjean manages to keep hold of that last precious points position on the racetrack this afternoon.
Look how much he had to lift off in the slipstream there if we get towards the final stage of the races. We see they start the race with approaching 110 kilograms of fuel. Fuel is weighed rather than measured as volume because it varies with temperature as a volume, but it doesn't vary with mass. And now the cars are getting nice and light as we head towards the end of the Grand Prix. I was surprised how much Albon had to get out of it there in turn 3.
Absolutely. 2 laps to go for the race leader. 3 seconds clear of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Bottas started today 1 point clear of Lewis Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship. Hamilton's got a fastest lap, so we'll take that 1 point back again and then go into the lead by 7 in what I hope will be a very close championship battle all season long, in which I've got no reason to think that the 2 Mercedes drivers won't be scrapping it out, because week after week they both bring something different to a racetrack.
I mean, yes, despite the safety car bringing them all together, the 2 Ferraris are still 8.6 and 12.1 seconds off the lead.
They need to find an answer fast down at Ferrari.
2 more laps, 2 more laps. Come on, Alex, we can get him.
Last championship point they're talking about now between Grosjean and Albon.
Well, he's been trying.
Yeah.
He's not moving anything in the locker on that one. Charles Leclerc down in 5th place, on for a 3rd consecutive 5th place finish. For the young man in Formula 1, will be his 4th 5th place finish of the season so far in only 5 races. And one, of course, the podium that he picked up, the race win he should have really picked up in Bahrain. No fault of his own that he didn't.
It's quite a modern thing, this, with the engineers. I like it. I like to listen to it, but you're pressing the throttle so hard you think you're going to push it through the firewall, through the front bulkhead. Someone's telling you to go faster, but it seems to motivate the drivers.
Lewis Hamilton continues on his way. Then he said he wouldn't be giving an inch to Valtteri Bottas at the start once again after he did in Baku. Danny Kvyat is chasing here after Carlos Sainz. Behind him, his teammate. Is he going to have a go? Alex Albon into turn 1. No, he isn't. Stays behind him once again. Yeah, that pretty much was his last chance. Lewis Hamilton today has given nobody any chances once he swooped past Valtteri Bottas and into the lead. Down at turn 1 from the start, he has not looked back. 160,000 people have come to Spain for the Grand Prix this weekend. And it's going to be Lewis Hamilton, who after his teammate Valtteri Bottas took 3 pole positions in a row yesterday, is going to see the checkered flag first and claim a hat-trick of Spanish Grand Prix wins. Lewis Hamilton wins the Spanish Grand Prix, and for the 5th time in a row, it's a Mercedes 1-2 as Valtteri Bottas comes home second. Max Verstappen claims a podium, and Ferrari, with Vettel 4th and Leclerc 5th, are left wondering what do they do and where do they go from here. Lewis Hamilton, driver of the day, possibly, winner, definitely. Pierre Gasly will come home to take 6th place ahead of Kevin Magnussen, 7th for Haas. Carlos Sainz, another finish in his home Grand Prix in the points. 5 starts in Spain, 5 points finishes. Danny Kvyat 9th, and Romain Grosjean holds on to 10th place. The Marshals bowing to Lewis Hamilton winning here. And the first man to take a hat-trick of Spanish Grand Prix wins since Michael Schumacher won 4 in a row from 2001 to 2004, and he picks up 26 points for his first fastest lap of the race this season as well.
That drive started developing about 30 seconds after qualifying finish yesterday, didn't it? It was like, okay, you're going to qualify me by 6/10, you better look out.
Bottas.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah, he was smiling yesterday, Bottas, and so he should have been. Hamilton had problems with his battery, couldn't respond on his first flying run in Q3. Track just didn't get faster as Q3 went on, so he couldn't take that pole position. But he's gone on and he's won the race in convincing style, and now has a 7th place lead at the top of the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship. I make it 90.
Get in there, Lewis. What a race drive that was. Awesome day in the seat there, mate. Fantastic start as well. So yeah, Mad Dog, great work.
Mad Dog does the clutches, does he, or something?
I think so. It just goes out in midday sun along the beach, I'm not quite sure. 94 points I make it in the Constructors' Championship. Max Verstappen gets driver of the day between Mercedes and Ferrari. 5 races down. Ferrari, who thought when they left here after testing this was going to be their year, are now 94 points adrift.
Yeah, just to say, just 10 weeks after winter testing, we were getting all very excited that it would be Mercedes trying to play catch-up with Ferrari. That's fair enough, I think. Well, Max, it was a solid drive. It wasn't an outstanding drive, but he got 19% of the vote. I think sort of represents a number of drivers drove pretty well today.
It was Verstappen's job made a little easy by Ferrari's indecision over strategy. Not taking anything away from him, but you know, Ferrari knew he was going to be stopping again, and then couldn't put a pincer movement on him. Couldn't do anything on Mercedes either. Confusion reigned down there, and everyone else just played it out the way they wanted to. 3rd consecutive win in Barcelona for Lewis Hamilton, who starts the European part of the season proper with victory here, and leading every single lap for the 16th time in his Formula 1 career.
So that's put McLaren ahead of Racing Point, hasn't it, in the World Championship, by the looks of it? Those points there for Sainz.
Yeah, 5 points ahead they are. He pulls into Parc Fermé. Nobody seems to be able, after 66 laps of racing, Martin, no one seems to be able to stop and not push those boards back. These drivers much better at going forwards rather than stopping.
Yeah, it's rather like driving an E-Type Jag. There's an awful lot of bonnet in front of you can't see.
Very true. Well, he wasn't the pole sitter today, as he was in 2017 and 2018. And also 2014 when he won here from the front of the grid as well. And he won't care about that too much. Got 25 points and the one for the fastest lap that he really wanted. Takes a big deep breath. Fully expected to see a big grin when he emerged from the cockpit.
Valtteri Bottas asked a big question of Lewis Hamilton yesterday, and he got the answer today.
And goes to embrace his team that built and ran the car that ran him to victory in this afternoon's race. Lewis Hamilton. Now the smiles come out. Mercedes will be absolutely delighted with yet another 1-2 finish. They honestly believed that that wasn't possible at the start of this season some 10 weeks ago. And let's hear from the top three. David Coulthard is down with us.
So, Lewis Hamilton, you winner. It didn't look so good yesterday, it looked amazing today.
Yeah, firstly, I just have to put it down to this incredible team. You know, this is history in the making to have 5 1-2s. So I'm very, very proud to be a part of that, and very proud of everyone's hard work here at the track and everyone back at the factory. It's definitely been a bit of a hard first 4 races naturally, which is a great car, but we always don't get along. So but I'm grateful in the race, managed to settle our differences and get away well, and long run down to turn 1. So I'm grateful for it, and I'm really happy for the whole team.
Put us in the cockpit. We heard you in Baku say maybe you gave a little bit more space than you would normally do to a competitor out of respect to Valtteri. You really went for it there. He was the meat in a sandwich at one point. He had Vettel on the other side, and you really managed to force yourself to take the lead.
Yeah, it was obviously an interesting start. Obviously very, very close. I saw I saw the red car go around the back of the both of us, and so I had no idea whether they were further ahead. I assumed they might be, and I knew that Valtteri would be braking super deep. So yeah, wasn't a replay of Baku at least.
And just finally, you got that extra point on fastest lap. Your restart after the safety car, it was like a quali lap. You were like almost 2 seconds quicker than anyone. So that was in your mind to nail the fastest lap at that point, or it was just to break the DRS position?
No, it was. We had obviously just done a pit stop, so I was trying to keep the tires warm, and I knew those first couple of laps on these new tires, or fresher tires, would be the moment that we'd have the chance to get that. And I've not had a fastest lap all year, so it was about time.
Congratulations, great victory. Valtteri, it got oh so close into the first corner, and we saw you have a little correction on your steering to avoid contact with Lewis, to avoid contact with Sebastian. They really squeezed you into that turn.
Yeah, it was pretty tight, but I lost it at the start. There was some strange behavior on the clutch. It was like biting, releasing, which I never felt before, so I lost it there.
Now, obviously, you're not in the happy place that you were yesterday after that stunning pole position. You're still in the hunt for the championship. You're going to some tracks that you enjoy. What do you take away from this weekend, apart from that second place result?
Well, yeah, as a team, it's incredible. 5th 1-2 in a row is really good. I got some good points. Every single point is going to count this year, so that's good for sure. But I'm just keen to find out why the start was so bad and why the issue happened.
Okay, Valtteri, well done. Max, admiring the competition. You were given the driver of the day. You're up into 3rd place in the championship. Pretty good. You're a bit of a fly in the ointment to the Ferrari team, though.
Yeah, it was a hectic first corner, so I just backed out of it and actually gave me a good position out of the first 3 corners, and then from there on, yeah, of course the Mercedes cars were too quick today, but I could do my own pace, and yeah, we were competitive, so yeah, happy to be on the podium.
So just tell us what you were looking at here. What can you learn when you look at your competition this close?
I don't know, just looking around to see what's different to mine.
Okay, well, enjoy your podium. Congratulations.
And I'm sure he will enjoy his podium, as I'm sure Mercedes-Benz will enjoy another 1-2 finish. We're sat here in the commentary box listening to the 2 drivers there, Martin Brundle, watching Nigel Mansell on the side there after his win here in 1991, and we're still trying to scratch our heads a little bit as to where Ferrari were going. Dr. Zecca, no surprise.
Race for me.
Thank you, man. I'm so proud of it. So grateful for your support all these years.
It's on by 5 1-2s. Never history.
Incredible.
Thank you. So you guys raced 6 laps, and it's all about the start.
Dr. Zecca is the big man at Daimler Mercedes, who's retiring very soon. I think he's just summed up what a lot of people are actually saying on Twitter at the moment. 66 laps all decided at the start.
Yes. And the restart after the safety car as well. Yes, he retires on May the 22nd. And a good man, a racer called Ola Kalanius will take over, which is good news.
Absolutely. But the Ferrari strategy, what were they doing? Could they have beaten Verstappen had they been more decisive? Would Vettel have got him if they hadn't have kept him behind Charles Leclerc? Would Charles Leclerc have done better if they hadn't have kept him behind Vettel in the early stages? And why do they put him on the hard compound tyre? I can't work it out.
They seem so focused on racing each other at the moment at Ferrari, and you know, we saw a couple of scruffy pit stops as well for good measure, and they're giving it away.
Max Verstappen from the Netherlands.
So Max Verstappen from the Netherlands, after finishing 4th in the last 3 races, picks up his second podium of the season.
Valtteri Bottas.
It's Mother's Day in Holland, and it's Mother's Day in Finland as well.
The winner is
I'm sure
Lewis
the respective
Hamilton.
mothers of Max and Valtteri will be delighted to see their boys on the podium. And for Lewis Hamilton, another victory in Formula 1, his 76th in his career. So tying their best ever run in Formula 1 then, another 1-2 finish for Mercedes-Benz, their 49th in Formula 1. And on behalf of Martin Brundle, everybody asking this question, what do the rest have to do to stop number 50 coming around in Monaco?
Find some power, some downforce, some strategy, and beat a world-class team operating at its finest.
It's either that or they fix a caravan to the back of the Silver Arrows, and last I looked, caravans were banned on the streets of Monaco. Just doesn't fit in.
I know, and the Mercedes was good around the slow corners here, which bodes well for Monaco as well.
Dr. Zetsche then attending his last Grand Prix as the man in charge of the company, and celebrating and smiling and very much enjoying the experience. Max Verstappen picking up another podium and another trophy.
Last time we're going to be here. I remember going out here in 1991 in pre-qualifying for Brabham. It seems really sad if we're not coming back here for a Grand Prix. It's not the finest Grand Prix circuit in the world, but it's part of Formula 1, isn't it?
Well, they say, the government of Catalonia, that they want the Grand Prix to stay. It might go to Holland on this date next year. Let's hope we're back in Spain at some time in 2020. But as for the presents, it's all looking very bright indeed for Mercedes. Another 1-2. 5th race, 5th 1-2. Hamilton back on top of the championship, the Spanish Grand Prix, and the smiles are his and his team's.
And a nice way for the boss, Dieter Zetsche, who retires from the board in 10 days' time. to bow out. He bows out with a win and another weekend where they were utterly dominant. Their 5th consecutive 1-2 finish, as David was saying, which ties their best ever run from 2014, and they set again in 2015-16. I think the thing that was perhaps worrying from the neutral today is the level of domination that they enjoyed over Ferrari, as Dr. Zetcher is hoisted high. He was a popular leader at Mercedes, and a really nice gesture to get him onto the